In the next section, we're going to talk about parenteral dosage of drugs. Parenteral is just another way of giving medication other than by mouth. And typically that is giving an injection. And an injection can either be in the muscle, or it can be under the skin, or it can be intradermal, or it can be intravenous. So these are the four routes that we can receive an injection. Most parenteral medications are prepared in liquid form and packaged in dose vials like ampules or pre-filled syringes. So if we were to give an injection in the muscle, the maximum dosage for a 150-pound adult would be 3 milliliters. So when you are talking about or thinking about your dosage, if you end up with a dosage that is greater than 3 milliliters, then you know to go back and recalculate. For a child, it would be 2 milliliters from 6 to 12 years, and 5 or younger would be 1 milliliter. Notice that this dosage is in milliliters. It's liquid measure. Therefore, we're going to have to watch to make sure that our conversions are all matched to metric measure. So step number 1, all units of measurement must be in the same system and all units must be in the same size. Step 2 is to think. You know how much is too much for the age, and what do you think sounds like a reasonable amount of medication? Step 3, take what is desired by the doctor, what you have on the medicine label, times the quantity. Now the quantity will be in milliliters, and that will be your dose. Parenteral dosages, we want to round the amount to be administered to tenths. And if it is greater than 1 milliliter, we'll measure it in a 3 milliliter syringe. And if our amount is less than a milliliter, we will round to hundredths. And all amounts less than 5/10 of a milliliter, we will put in a 1 milliliter syringe. Now again, if it's greater than a milliliter, you're rounding to tenths, and it goes in a 3 milliliter syringe. If it is less than a milliliter, you will use a 1 milliliter syringe, and you will round to hundredths. Parenteral dosages, the amounts of 5/10 milliliters to 1 milliliter, calculated in tenths, can be accurately measured in either a 1 milliliter or a 3 milliliter syringe. So if it's less than 5/10, it has to go in a 1 milliliter. But if it's between 5/10 and 1 milliliter, it could be either. Now we're going to look at how we can calculate the dosage. The doctor has ordered Cleocin 150 milligrams in the muscle every 12 hours. What you have available is Cleocin, which is clindamycin, 300 milligrams per 2 milliliters. Now, think. The doctor wants him to have 150 milligrams. You've got 300 milligrams per 2 milliliters. So you have twice the strength that the doctor wants. Our medication tends to be in the same unit, so all are in metric measure. So we think, this is what the doctor ordered, this is what we have. No conversion necessary, all in metric. You think, well, I've got to give less than 2 milliliters. The doctor wants me to give half the strength that I have, so a half of 300 at 2 milliliters would be 1 milliliter. Now, this would be thinking in your head, so now you have to actually calculate. The desired is 150 milligrams. What we have is 300 milligrams per 2 milliliters. So when we cancel, we have 2 over 2, which reduces to 1 milliliter. So you would give 1 milliliter in the muscle every 12 hours. One milliliter would be given in a 3 milliliter syringe, and the medication would look like this. Alright, another example. The doctor has ordered 150 microgram in the muscle stat. Now, your supply is 2/10 milligrams per milliliter. Now, what I see right away is that my units do not match, but the rule is that I would change to the smaller unit, therefore I could eliminate the decimal. I know that 1 milligram is 1,000 microgram, and when I multiply by 1,000, it moves the decimal 3 places to the right. So 2/10 milligrams is 200 micrograms. So I think what did the doctor order? What do I have? The order is less than what I have, so it's going to be less than 1. So I set up what the doctor ordered over what I have in the same units per milliliter. So that's 3/4 of a milliliter, which is 75 hundredths milliliter. So it's given in the muscle immediately. We'll use a 1 milliliter syringe. We'll measure out 75 hundredths milliliter. Alright, one more time, the guides for the syringes. If your dose is more than 1 milliliter, you're going to round to tenths and measure in the 3 milliliter syringe. The 3 milliliter syringe is calibrated to 1/10 of a milliliter. So if you had 1 53 hundredths milliliter, that would need to round to 1 5/10 milliliter. You would draw that up in a 3 milliliter syringe. Small doses less than 1 milliliter for critical care or children's dosage. You want to round to hundredths place and measure in a 1 milliliter syringe. A 1 milliliter syringe is calibrated in 1/100th increments. So if you had 257 thousandths, that has to round to 26 hundredths of a milliliter. So you would draw that up in the 1 milliliter syringe. If the medicine is 5/10 to 1 milliliter, you're going to round that to tenths. And you can either use the 1 milliliter or the 3 milliliter syringe. Now this is what an insulin label might look like. We have the manufacturer, which is Lilly. It's 100 units per milliliter. That's the concentration. This is the brand name, Humulin R. This is how it has to be stored. This is the generic name. And then the expiration date would be given here. The supply dosage of insulin is in 100 units per milliliter, and it's usually abbreviated U100. And there is a separate syringe that's used for insulin. Accuracy is critical in giving insulin, and nurses must understand and correctly interpret insulin orders and labels, and the correct syringe must be selected. So this is an insulin syringe, and notice that you have units given. So sometimes you can give different types of insulin. So if you were to give 40 units of one type and 12 units of another, you could draw that up within the same syringe, and you actually end up giving 52 units. So when you're preparing the combination, what you do is you inject air into the bottle. So if you're trying to want to draw out 30 units, you inject 30 units of air into the bottle, and you need 10, so you inject 10 units of air into the bottle. And then withdraw the 10, and then withdraw the 30. So the amount of air you put into the bottle is the amount you draw out. So first inject 30 units of air, then inject 10 units of air. Then you draw out the 10 units, and then you draw out the 30 units. Alright, we have an insulin sliding scale. So let's say that our order was Humulin R regular units, 100 insulin SC, based on glucose reading at 1600. So we have read the glucose, we've made our glucose reading, and if the glucose is less than 160, no medicine is given. If it's between 160 and 220, then 2 units, and so on. If the reading is greater than 400, then that's an emergency, and you should call the doctor immediately. Now, this is how we do not make errors, and this is very important, especially for insulin users. If you make a mistake giving the insulin, that's a life or death situation. So two nurses should always check the insulin dosage. And when combination dosages are prepared, two nurses must verify each step of the process.